Hello, and welcome back to Talking Shop, a series of fun conversations with consummate concert artists, opera singers, composers, and choreographers. I'm really thrilled today to have with us Mark Thress, who is my voice teacher. And Mark is a renowned musician, vocalist, and vocal coach whose expertise spans classical and commercial music. His extensive background includes vocal health research, and he has established a Vocal 360 global program to equip emerging music professionals with the skills that they need. And he's also deputy director of New Roots Empower, a program specifically designed for female vocalists to help them build successful careers. Mark, I'm so glad that we could do this today. It's so lovely
Yes, me
to
too.
see you. Yeah,
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 likewise. This is super
awesome.
fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I have a standard question that I open all of our conversations with, and that
Sure.
is, what does being an opera singer, vocal coach, all the things you do, what does all of that mean to you personally?
Yes, so I've always been really creative and I've always wanted to express the feelings that I was feeling, growing up as a kid. And so having the opportunity to do that in a creative career is really fulfilling to me personally. And then also as a coach, I love the opportunity to be able to pour into artists and to be able to see them through the longevity of their career. That's just really important to me. And as we'll probably get into a little bit later, I always want to become the person I wish I had when I was going through my music career. So, and I'm sure a lot of us as educators sort of feel the same way, but that's where I get a lot of joy is being able to work with a high level artists and take them to the places where they didn't even think they might be able to go themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and you've worked with some pretty high profile artists. I mean, you've worked with people over for Taylor Swift and some pretty big people out there.
I have, yeah. And it's funny when you get to that level. I'm very fortunate that people have come to me and asked for assistance and have trusted me, with the skills and the tools that I have. But it is funny when you get to that level because I always say that the genres they wind up kind of balancing out. They almost even out as you get to the top. So if you're at the top of your operatic career or you're at the very top touring with Taylor Swift, the skills and the tools and the mindset and the energy that you need at those levels are very similar. So people think that Renee Fleming when she's going on stage has to do something different because she's an opera singer when she's communicating to a crowd than somebody that might be like one of the artists I work with is Gail, and she was on tour with Taylor Swift. But they wind up being the same thing. They have to communicate, they have to reach the audience, they have to use their technique to be able to transmit their message, and there's a lot of similarities there. So, I'd like to think that despite the various disciplines and genres of music, that there is a through line to being a human being in music, and we relate to that on a very high level.
I think that's really fascinating. I've never really heard anyone say that before, and I know I tend to think of the different genres as just kind of different columns, I guess, different areas, and to think about them converging kind of at the top is really a fascinating concept.
Yeah, I'd like to think that they do, and especially for the artists that are legacy artists, right? Like you used the Renee Fleming as an example. In fact, I was just at a friend's house yesterday, and her mom showed me this video of Renee Fleming singing to like this. It was a cartoon Christmas music or movie or something I haven't seen before, and it was fabulous. And it was very much in this crossover genre, but you could hear that she was borrowing from her classical technique, yet she had an understanding of music and interpretation that really made the music speak. And
Yeah.
that's commercial music. That's what the indie pop singers are trying to do, and the singer-songwriters, and even the people here in Nashville that get up on stage and write sing their songs and stuff in a songwriters night. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to communicate a message. And historically, the tools that you needed as an opera singer were to be able to translate that message to an audience that's farther away. So you had to project at a certain point to be able to do that. Now, with the age of, amplification and recording, those classical singers are having to do a little bit more nuance with their music. But like you said, it does converge, at least I believe, at the very top, at the highest level. And those artists that stick around for a long time have figured that out.
One of the things I love most about that is, of course, my passion for classical music. It's like the foundation for everything. And that's just a further
Yep.
proof, a further point in that regard. So that leads really easily into talking about your background. You have a very unique skill set in the vocal world. You sing opera as well as other genres. You have a certificate in singing health and a passion for vocal research and vocal science, which I think is a
Mhm.
fascinating topic. You also received a grant to develop an iPad music therapy program um, for cancer patients. It would just, I mean, there's so many topics here. We can go in so many different directions.
Sure.
And I know I'm going to have you back multiple times to explore all these a little bit deeper, but what led you to develop such a diverse vocal and musical background? And how does all of this factor into your career today?
It's probably undiagnosed ADD or something like that. No, no, I'm not really sure. I think I've always just been so fascinated with learning. And I guess if I can backtrack a little bit, when I was planning on going to college, I told my parents I wanted to get into neuroscience because I was fascinated with the way music affected the brain and body, and I just wanted to really explore that. And I wanted to go at it from the perspective of science. And so naturally, my family was like, neuroscience, this is great. Our son's going to be, very successful and well off and all those kinds of things. And so I actually applied to school for neuroscience and got two full scholarships that I eventually declined, unfortunately,
Wow.
to the demise of my parents. But I did, and hand to God on that one. And I just was always really fascinated by how we experienced music and how the human body was affected by it and all those kinds of things. And so that led into different genres and styles of music that I really appreciated. So from a young age, my grandparents actually always sang musical theater songs and classical music around our house, and so I kind of got exposed to that. But my mom was really into Shania Twain and Celine Dion, and my dad liked like the Beatles and all this different kinds of music was just surrounding me as a young kid, and so I loved it. I mean, I love everything from like 90s R&B or hip hop to Andrea Bocelli to jazz, smooth jazz. Like I love it all. And I think I never wanted to put myself in a box when it came to my music because I always felt that if I was a classical singer and I was learning how someone could craft a line or colors in jazz, that would somehow influence my classical singing. And if I was singing opera and I knew how to project, then that would help me with my musical theater singing because then, so I always had this idea that, well, I didn't need to just learn one discipline. I needed to appreciate everything and draw from them to create my own thing. And also, to add to that, I think as I was developing my music career, I started to realize that the path for me within my classical music was going to always be multifaceted because I was starting to see, and of course, now this is a little while ago, but I was starting to see things change. I was starting to see people not have a strictly operatic career in terms of making money and having a sustainable, lifestyle. So I said to myself, okay, well, I'm a pianist. I like playing, I like arranging, I like composing. Are there more elements to just learning all of the repertoire, the operatic repertoire, and getting on stage? And so that kept me kind of bouncing around to different genres and different styles.
I think that's great. I do want to explore a little bit more in depth the opera side of your career because it sounds to me
Please.
that's a little bit foundational, and
Yes.
I would love to know what really drew you to that initially. And you've just told us how it's become kind of a foundation for everything else. But talk to us about how what led you to the opera side.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to think I have a pretty decent story for how this all came to fruition. So when I was growing up, I was raised by my mom's side of the family, which is 100% Italian. And I was raised specifically by my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather as well. Um, and so my grandmother, when she was younger, took care of her mother who had multiple sclerosis. She was her primary caretaker. And from a young age, she was listening to music on the radio. And at that time, it was opera. That was like the pop music that was being, shared on the radio. So she learned all of these songs and all this musical theater repertoire at 10 years old and would sing it to her mother. So she developed this ear and had a beautiful voice too, for classical music. My grandfather very similarly loved Mario Lanza and Pavarotti and all these artists, and so he would kind of be singing that around the house too. And I don't know that I ever thought I would be an opera singer, but it was just kind of part of the culture of what we did. We were
Sure.
always singing songs, and I was always listening to music and that sort of thing. And so when it came down to deciding what I really wanted to do in my life, I had a very unique experience that we can kind of get into a little bit later. But I had a very unique experience in um, uh, back in Pennsylvania, actually in Pittsburgh, when I was in high school. And I was performing, and it just sort of hit me in that moment that I wanted to make music. And when it came time to deciding what kind of music, where, and how, my first instinct was, well, classical music is the foundation for vocal technique. It's the foundation for, being able to project your voice and really harness the true art form of singing. And that's exactly where I landed. And luckily, I had this rich foundation of my family showing me, all this opera music and classical music for all these years. So it was sort of a natural transition, although I didn't, this is kind of silly and funny, but I was so naive to everything. I didn't understand that learning about opera would require me to be in an opera. I know that's so silly now looking back, but I just thought, okay, well, I'll take classical voice lessons and they'll teach me some songs and I'm going to learn how to be a great singer. And I want to be the best that I can be for my own voice. And that's what I'd like to do. But then, within my first semester, everyone was saying, okay, well, we're doing Die Zauberflöte or something like that, and you need, or Die Fledermaus, right? You have to be in the chorus or you'll have to audition for a role. And I had not prepared for that at all. I was very naive. I just thought I wanted to be like Pavarotti.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got my start, and then I fell in love with it and really started to grow. And luckily, I had a fantastic, fantastic teacher, Kevin McMillan, who I probably should call up and apologize to because freshman Mark was he didn't really know what he was doing, but he whipped me into shape. And in a short period of time, I went from singing straight tone to singing with vibrato. My second year of college, I was getting lead roles, and that was it.
That's a wonderful, wonderful story. So
Yeah,
I
thanks.
want to I want to dig just a little bit deeper, and you touched on it. You touched on both the things I'm going to ask you. You touched on, quote, the aha moment that made
Hmm.
you know instantly that this is what you want to do with your life. But you also, I mean, anyone would think getting two scholarships for neuroscience is like, okay, this is my path. So
Hmm.
talk to us a little bit about that switch that went off for you and how you really knew and knew that this was not just a whim, it was something really that you wanted to dedicate your life to.
Yeah, so that was that. I think I still battle that sometimes when our music career is kind of, ebbing and flowing a little bit. I go, well, maybe I would have liked neuroscience. No, uh, but I I had a very specific. Well, let me backtrack here. My family, they're wonderful people, but I was the first person to go to college in my entire family, and I'm currently the most educated person in my entire family, still to this date, which I take pride in. Um,
I'm
but
sure
when
they
it
do
came
too.
to what's that?
I'm
Oh,
sure they
yes,
do too.
yes,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, yeah. So when it came down to choosing college and understanding what the next phase of life would be, to my parents' credit, they prepared me for life, but I don't know that they necessarily knew how to prepare me for college. So I had to do a lot of self-discovery. And when it came down to learning about the lifestyles, I knew, or at least I discovered at one point, that I wanted to make my passion my job, not have a job to fuel my passion. because I knew that no matter how hard it was, if I still had a passion for what I was doing, I could get up every day and go to work and do it, and that would be okay. And so this sort of aha epiphany moment actually came from a program that I participated in out at Geneva College in Western PA, outside of Pittsburgh. It was the Governor School of the Arts program, and I was selected to sing a premiere musical theater work at the program that they had during the summer. They flew in this guy from Disney. There was another gentleman that flew in from LA, and they selected me of all people to sing this show. So I was like, me? Why me? I mean, this is like how could I be the one chosen? So I'm so excited. I'm so thrilled. And in 2 days, we basically learned this musical theater review, and I have a very clear memory in my mind. I know exactly where I was standing. And I remember getting on stage with this microphone, and they had this great sound system in this black box room. And the guy that I was playing with had a piano, and it was a Yamaha piano that had all the other strings and stuff into it. So they had these full tracks, and I start singing, and one of the songs was soaring, something soaring, whatever. So I'm singing all these high notes, and I feel the music, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like, if I could have this for the rest of my life, if I get to do this, then I know I've made it.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my parents and I said, hey, I don't know if I need to do this science thing. I need to audition for some music programs, and this is going to be publicized. So I don't know if they'll see it, but there were some programs, some auditions that they didn't really want to take me to for music because they thought that it probably wasn't the best idea, that I should probably stick with neuroscience. Because at this point I split my time auditioning for or interviewing and applying for colleges in
Mhm.
neuroscience, and then I was telling them that I also wanted to apply for music. And so they I don't know that they loved that, but when it came down to it and I was making the decision, I knew that I could get up every day and know that I had a passion that was my job, and that job didn't have to fuel my passion on the weekends or something.
Yeah, I think that that's so identifiable. I can relate to that because, singing and feeling that audience in the palm of your hands and just having that communication. I mean, it just takes you, it's a place that it's a feeling I've never replicated before with
Hmm.
anything else. And you just know you want to live there. It's like, oh, I want as much of this as I can get,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I really relate to that. That's awesome.
It's transcendent,
Oh
it,
my
it
gosh,
takes
perfect
you
word.
yeah, it
Yeah.
takes you to a place and it makes you feel things and connect with people that you don't get to experience.
Yeah, it really is almost otherworldly in my view.
Hmm.
It's just a glorious, glorious place to be. And I feel like as musicians, we're just so lucky to be able to tap into something like that because I'm not sure that everyone gets the opportunity to be
No.
that fulfilled, with what they do. So let's branch into a little bit about the diversity of your background at this point. You arrange and write music, you teach, you do I don't know what your research into vocal health is. I'm sure that's ongoing, but how do all these different facets of your musicianship come into play? What's been their role in making you the artist you've become, and how are they steering your path forward at this point? Because things evolve through our lives. We kind of peel back the onion and we discover different things. Talk to us about all of that. That's a lot in one question. Sorry.
Yes, no, that's okay. So my vocal health background, like you said, is always sort of evolving. Now, I haven't done as much research recently as I had maybe 5 years ago, but in terms of my study, I mean, I'm just the biggest nerd. I think you know that. I am such a nerd and I love learning things. And so almost every day, whether it's through, articles or social media or something, I'm always trying to discover like, okay, what's the new supplement or something you can take that's good for your voice, or what are the exercises or the patterns that we need to get into that help you with singing or improving your body and all those kinds of things. And so I've always been so interested in trying to maximize life, I think, and maximize my ability as a musician, that I see it encompassing all of these things. as much as it encompasses vocal health, it encompasses the different styles and studies and research and uh, my background is also in playing the piano and doing arrangements and compositions and such. So um, I feel that that helps me interpret music because I can see what the composer wanted from the orchestra and how that pairs with the singer. And, that also helps me interpret, what I'm doing and be able to translate to the best of my ability. And in terms of how that's allowed me to be successful, I'm very grateful for those things because I've lived in a lot of different spaces, and I feel like I've been able to be successful in a lot of different spaces. A really great example was I do session singing now for a lot of different programs and producers and such, and they'll call me and they'll say, "Hey, we have this demo that we need done, or we're going to premiere this new work, and we need someone to track it for whomever." And so I'll get called into the studio to do that. Recently, I actually had one of my friends producing a project, and he asked me to sing a handful of songs, and we forgot to share one of the songs that was supposed to be on this project. So I show up, and they bring up the next track, and I'm not ready for it at all. Haven't looked at it.
No.
So, had I not had a piano background, an arranging background, a good sight reading background, and especially an understanding of classical crossover and that sort of genre, I would not have been able to be able to prepare it to the way that I did, or
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
ability to the level that I did. So I said, guys, I don't want to reschedule because it's going to cost everybody money to get the studio. I said, give me 5 minutes. Let me just run into the back room, figure it out. I played it out on the piano and it's like, okay, put me on the mic. I think I could do it in a few takes and we'll figure it out. And I did.
Yeah.
And that makes me valuable as a musician
Absolutely.
moving forward because all of my skill set comes together. You
Hmm.
know, I
Hmm.
know that if I'm singing a 3 hour session, I have to treat my voice a certain way because of my vocal health, right?
Yep.
And my vocal health knowledge.
Yeah.
I know that if I'm going on stage and I have to project a certain way, I have to prepare my muscles beforehand, because of my knowledge of vocal health and coaching and all those kinds of things. So I just see them as being woven together. And I hope that answers your question. But it's very multifaceted, in my opinion, and it all allows me to become who I am, I think.
Yeah, no, it very much answers my question, and I think it just points to the fact that couple of things, as we explore our musical selves, our musicianship, we come across different things, and we're naturally curious people, I think. So we try
Hmm.
different things, and we investigate different things, and it all I think a lot of people wonder maybe how can they do all these things? How can one person play all these instruments, or how can one person, do all these different things that might seem unrelated or at least disparate, but in my view, they're all part of the same thing. They're just different
Hmm.
facets of that. And it sounds like that's what you're saying as well.
Yes, there's a great quote from, I think it's Jacob Collier said this, who I admire his work very much. I think he's super talented. Talented. He's a living genius. But he says that there's a reason why we call it playing an instrument. You play piano, you play music, you play saxophone or something, because it's meant for you to be able to play around and explore. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of it, right? It's part of the energy. We need to be able to be in this playing mindset, where we're creative and we're trying new things and experiencing new things and combining ideas and such. I think that makes a big difference in our world.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. And I think also the cumulative effect of all of our experiences and our education really feeds into, the fact that you could prepare this in like 5 minutes. It's it's
Yes.
it's it's all of your experiences, your education, your knowledge, your practice, your curiosity coming to the fore when called upon, and you never know when that's going to happen.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So I just think that's really marvelous. I wanted to, I guess, depart a little bit from our planned conversation and just ask you a little bit about performance anxiety.
Sure.
And one reason I'm asking this because you have these two programs that you work with young musicians to help equip them. So to me, this is a part of that. Do you experience that yourself? And if so, how do you handle it? And number two, how do you prepare emerging musicians and young vocalists to handle this?
This is a great question, and I think everybody faces it, even at the highest level. If you're comfortable with it, you're still experiencing some level of butterflies, but you've overcome the fear and you're willing to just take a leap of faith, you know? So I've faced debilitating anxiety my entire life with performing. It's always been something that has probably been my biggest Achilles heel. Um, I haven't found out exactly where it's derived from yet, but what I have understood about myself as I've gotten older is that I wanted so badly to do it justice. I wanted the music to just be the best that it could be. And it wasn't necessarily about like, oh my gosh, these people might see me or they might hear me or I might mess up. It wasn't messing up for me, it was messing up for the music. I think that was the thing that bothered me. You know, like I'm a word forgetter. I forget words all the time. I forget lyrics constantly. And that's just my problem. That's how my brain works, unfortunately. But I'm always worried about messing up the lyrics for whatever reason. And so, what I've had to understand as I've matured in my career and in my music is that the flow state that we experience when we're really enjoying music is something beautiful because you're not thinking about lyrics, you're not thinking about technique, you're just living in this moment. And I've had to teach myself again how to get back into that flow state. As a young kid, I would black out and just be in this ecstasy and sing this amazing concert and have fun and never think about high notes or low notes or lyrics or nothing, nothing. And I'd have to get into that. And as an adult and as a mature singer now, I've had to rediscover that for myself. My process actually involves a lot of meditation prior to singing. I had a really fantastic opportunity that popped up a few years ago that's been ongoing actually since. And a now colleague and friend of mine, Ching Chiu Hu, created this piece of music with my voice in mind, based off of the lyrics from a poem of a Vietnam soldier.
Wow.
So when I got this opportunity to sing it with symphony, it's just tenor and symphony for like about a 15-minute song. I had a minor panic. I knew I had to say yes. I said yes on the call and I hung up and then I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I felt myself getting really overwhelmed by the idea of having to create a piece from nothing. I mean, it has never been performed before, so this was a premiere, and I had to do it justice. So I sat in my living room at the time, and I knew that if I just put myself there, I had just to imagine that I was crushing it and that I was enjoying it and that everybody was there that I knew and I could see the stage. Even I never knew the stage, didn't know the people involved, didn't hear the music, didn't anything. But I sat on the floor and I just would envision it. And the craziest thing for me, which was really my breaking point, was where I was sitting down and I started to have anxiety. I felt this weight on my chest and I almost started to like break a sweat a little bit. And then I had to snap out of it and go, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in my living room and my brain made me afraid of something that didn't exist. So if it can make me afraid of something that didn't exist, it can make me excited about something that doesn't exist. And it can prepare me for something that doesn't exist that will eventually exist so that when I live in that space, I'm okay.
Wow.
And so it's funny how this all came full circle. I go to the gig, my plane got delayed a bunch of times. And then I was supposed to have like about a day before the first rehearsal. I did not have that day. I got picked up off of the plane and they walked me right to the stage for the symphony, and I had to sing the dress rehearsal. No
Wow.
warm up, no water, hardly any
Wow.
sleep.
Yeah.
And I felt my body go, oh my gosh, I would normally panic in this situation and, get this adrenaline rush and whatever. But there was something about my preparedness going, oh, I've lived this 35 times in my living room. Now, I may have had my costume on or my tux jacket or whatever, but I've been here before. And that mindset was like revolutionary for me. It completely changed my perspective on getting prepared for music and also my body's reaction to the unknown. And that was huge for me. So that's what I do now. Anytime I know, if I can prepare ahead of time at least, um, if I get into a situation where I know I'm going to have a big event, I sit there with myself and I just mentally go through it. And if I get fearful or scared or nervous, I can address it and I say, look, I'm sitting in my living room, like with a cup of tea or something like that, casually. I'm not in any danger. Let's work through this. And I work through it until I'm really comfortable or I'm prepared for the music or whatever. And then, as it pertains to other artists, I don't know that that necessarily works for all artists. Some people are capable of doing that. Some people that might be more uncomfortable for them. But I'd like to think that having your mindset and your intentions prepared ahead of time relieve the stress of the anxiety of the performance. And as classical singers, we spend so much time drilling and drilling and drilling and going through exercises and saying, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, unfortunately, but it does make sense and it has a place, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves. They'll say, "Oh, Lisa, well, one day you'll sing this piece of music, but not now." And then you
Oh,
go to your next teacher and your next teacher goes, well, one day you'll sing Bohème, but not now. And then you get to be 25, 30 years old, 35 years old, and you never got to sing the music that you loved,
oh wow. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's something to be said about that, and there's something that is ingrained in us in the culture of our studies. And it does create some sort of anxiety because you always feel like you're a work in progress. You're like an unwrapped or partially wrapped gift that you have to present to everybody in public and then get scrutinized for it,
Yeah.
you know? So, in terms of preparing with other artists, I usually walk them through those steps and talk to them about what do you actually want to get out of it. And the beauty of it is it's not about us.
Mhm.
It's not about us being on stage. It's about us as a vessel.
Yeah.
We're transcending the meaning and the lyrics and the words, and our technique is the tool. It's the like railway to be able to transmit that message. And if we do it justice and we live in the moment, we're perfect. We're just fine. When you start thinking about yourself is when you start to have the anxiety.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely true. I know that's true for me, and it's a constant battle as well. But what a fascinating response. I really, really appreciate all of those different facets. It's really intriguing, and I know it's going to help a lot of people to hear this. Um, okay, so tell us a little bit more about. I want to hear a little bit more about your 360 Global program and also
Hmm.
the New Roots Empower program. They sound, I guess, at first impression, the global program sounds more general. Maybe the New Roots is more specific. Am I correct in that? I mean, tell us a little bit about
Yes.
those.
Yes, yeah. So you're exactly right. So when I first came to Nashville, I realized that a lot of the artists I was working with needed more than just vocal coaching or just one element of their career as an artist. They needed a full spectrum, or as I call it, a 360 degree of what their voice is. What do they say? Like, how do they speak in public? What is their branding? What is their image? How do they carry themselves? What do their lyrics resonate, on or resonate with? And this idea sort of developed to be able to create this program, which is really a holistic artist development program. And I'm very fortunate that it's sort of transmitted in a lot of different ways. And I had events here throughout town where I would bring in the artists I was developing, and I was partnering. I say was because I've modified this slightly, but the inception of this program brought in my artists that I was developing into these unique spaces all throughout town, and then I would bring in local supporters of the music industry, food, drinks, entertainment, etc. And then I would also support them with music industry executives and people that worked in the back end. So it was this really unique creative experience where the artists were getting to test out their skills in a live setting, but also created a really natural, organic networking opportunity. And one thing led to the next, and it actually was very successful right until the world shut down during COVID. So I did have to pivot a little bit for that. But as it's intended, Vocal 360 is a program that helps to develop the artist, their branding, even down to their social media, and what that looks like outside of just being a singer and an artist. So then the other program that I actually developed called New Roots Empower was with my business partner Sheridan, and that was specifically intended to give real world application to female artists. So we provide educational resources for female artists who come from all across the country and actually some from overseas too. We just had an artist from Spain come to our program as well. And New Roots actually houses artists in Nashville. It's all different genres of music. It's not just country. And they stay here in town and they work with professionals in all different disciplines. So, songwriting, sync licensing, management, uh, business coaching, et cetera, et cetera. They do performance coaching. They get photos and videos and re-record in the studio. I mean, it's a big deal. It's sort of an intensive that we get to put them throughout the weekend. So that's been really exceptional because of the community that we've built. And the through line between those two programs for me really is the human. Like, how can we develop a person and a career that feels human and personal? And whether it's Vocal 360 and looking at the whole image and the individual, or specifically with the female artists that are the singer-songwriter type, how can we draw that out? How can we amplify the most unique parts of you? Because that's really what makes a world full of creative, unique, and special musicians.
Yeah. Wow. They just both sound phenomenal. And I love
Thank
that,
you.
I love that those programs are out there. I'm sure there are other programs, but to me, that's something that's so needed because my development as a musician, I mean, I've just been out there. I've not even known where to go to find out what I needed, and it's been a real journey. And, when you have a resource like that to help you, especially as an emerging artist, really find your footing
Yes.
and make your way. That's just phenomenal. So,
Excuse me.
um, are there any special events coming up you want to tell us about? Anything exciting, particularly for?
Yes, thank you for asking that. I appreciate
Sure.
the
Yeah.
promo here. No. So, special events, let's see. I have I've recorded an EP of classical crossover songs that I'm excited to be releasing pretty soon. So that should
Awesome.
hopefully be out this fall or early next year.
Fantastic.
I'll also be releasing a Christmas song that's an original that I'm going to be recording. I'll drop the name of the song here. It's called Skip My House.
Oh,
And if you're curious on what that might be, it's telling Santa that you're really grateful for everything. You have everything that you need, and he can skip my house this year and take care of everybody else because you're doing great. Like
that's awesome.
you're appreciative of your family and the love that you share, and that's what really matters. So that'll be coming up, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
And then there's probably a few things that I'm forgetting, but that's more on the artist side of things, actually, which is new for me.
Yeah.
As we all kind of go through these seasons, my season this year has seemed to be writing and performing for whatever reason. So I'm not mad about it. I'm getting back to my roots a little bit, and again,
Yeah.
I'm allowing myself to be creative and free, and with the schedule that I have, it's really nice. Maybe I'm not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing neurosurgery or anything like that, but I do get the opportunity to explore and write and perform. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to this fall.
That all sounds absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure you're going to be posting about those things as they get closer to dropping. And
Yes, I
awesome.
will for sure.
Okay. So
Yeah, they'll
we'll,
be all over social media and my website.
fantastic. Fantastic. Love it. Gosh, this has been so wonderful, Mark. Thank you. We've covered a
Yeah,
lot
no, my
of
pleasure.
ground, and I look forward to having you back, at some point, and we'll dig a
For
little
sure.
deeper into some of these areas. But thank you so much. It's been really, really fun.
Good.
Um,
I'm so glad. My
yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. So thanks for joining us again today, and we'll see you next time on Talking Shop.